If the Washington Commanders aren't in love with a player available at number 29, and I don't think they're likely to be, then moving back and trading with the Cleveland Browns might be the best move of the entire night one of the NFL draft. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I am your host, David Harrison, here with you every Monday through Friday. Your eyes, your ears on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9, your local DMV CBS affiliate, and for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. Thank you for coming through for today's episode. On today's episode, we are going to drop a bonus mock draft. I know. I said yesterday, our last mock draft episode of the season, but you know what? Adam Peters just inspires, man. So we have to do a bonus mock draft because it's all going to come off the tail of what Adam Peters had to say during his Tuesday pre-draft press conferences, all about trading up, staying at the same place, or potentially trading up, staying in the same place, or even trading back. Every day, as those of you who come through every day for every episode, I greatly appreciate you, and a special thank you for coming through every single day. If you're not already, please subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this episode right now. And if you're new to Locked On Commanders, welcome to the show. This is a daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hopefully you like what you hear and you come back again very, very soon. We met with General Manager Adam Peters on Tuesday afternoon in Ashburn, Virginia at the team facility. Pre-draft press conference, he and Assistant General Manager Lance Newmark taking our amazing, illustrious questions and giving us the best answers they could give us without tipping their hand too much. However, we do have some things to take away from it, and because of that, we're going to do a whole darn episode on trading. Trade up, trade down, stay put. We've got all kinds of draft night scenarios for you to ponder that Adam Peters is going to be pondering at pick number 29 on the first night of the NFL draft, kicking off Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So insiders, we're getting text messages all through this press conference and getting as many notes as I could possibly give them. So you guys are all over a lot of these comments already, but we're going to dive into a lot of these trade comments. And one comment that I want to start with here, Adam Peters saying, quote, "You're really open to everything. You're open to moving up if the right move's up. But if there's a great player that we want to sit and pick, we'll do that," end quote. And I really kind of honed in on this great player thing. This is not a settle situation for Adam Peters. This is not, yeah, he's good enough, or yeah, we like him. No, this has got to be, and we've kind of talked about this, right? I've kind of outlined that. To me, my favorite scenario here is that the Commanders come on the clock at 29 and they're sitting there and there's like 5 or 6 guys that they like all together. At 29, we like all these dudes. It's like going to the buffet and you can get one protein, but you got 5 bins of proteins and you're like, I like all these proteins equally. There's not a great one. They're just all good dudes. That is kind of what I want to have happen for the Washington Commanders. Now, don't get me wrong. If that great player presents himself, fantastic. Makes your job a lot easier if you're Adam Peters. However, I really want to see this team, especially in this draft class, which is good but not great, get as many picks as possible. So to try to figure out, let's try to hypothesize what's most likely to happen on Thursday night. I think we have to do is start with the top players available at the different position groups that the Washington Commanders could be looking at. And this, of course, is all projected, right? None of it is 100% for sure. But you're looking at guys like interior lineman Tyler Booker out of Alabama, or Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, who's kind of grown on me the more that I've gone through this. Tyler Booker, not a big fan of Alabama guys, not like, nothing personal against them, or like John Allen, Deron Payne, Brian Robinson, nothing like that. But been talking to some other media members too. And this is something that I wish I had the ear of a scout at this point in time in the season, but right now they're all pretty much shut in. And, Alabama guys just kind of tend to come into the league a little bit more banged up than other schools, a little bit more worn down than other schools. And Tyler Booker already has a little bit of a lack of some of the things that we're looking for a Commanders lineman, in my humble opinion. So I think Gray Zabel, even though Tyler Booker is the higher rated player, I think Gray Zabel would be the higher player on my personal big board in this situation. Edge rusher Donovan Ezeiruaku out of Boston College. We've seen him mocked multiple times. There's NFL.com mock, ESPN.com mock, sending Donovan Ezeiruaku to the Commanders at 29. So he's definitely one of those guys. Our number one pass rushing edge on our big board. Safety Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. Sorry, not Boston College, who we've talked about extensively. Wide receiver Luther Burden III out of Missouri. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky, who I'm not all that high on, but I know a lot of Commanders fans are. Offensive tackle Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. Defensive tackle Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Running back Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Those are looking at positions of needs or target position groups that we've talked about the Washington Commanders. Those are the guys that you're kind of thinking of are going to be available or potentially going to be available at number 29 for Adam Peters. So the question now is, are any of those players great? Well, I think what you have to look at here is none of those players, in my opinion, are day one starters projected. As soon as you pick them, day one starter projected outside of Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina, if the team is fixated on getting a Jeremy Chin-like safety onto the field. And I don't know if they are, because Jeremy Chin, one of the more surprising players to leave the Washington Commanders this offseason, heads to the Las Vegas Raiders on a multi-year deal. I really thought he was going to come back. I know several media members really thought he was going to be back. Like, he was not a guy we were even really worried wasn't going to be back, right? Like, we just thought he was going to be back, but he's not. So the question now is, was that like a Jeremy Chin thing, or was that a shift? Are we seeing a shift in the scheme where maybe Joe Wade Jr. is not going to employ this large safety hybrid linebacker type of guy? If they aren't, then Nick Emenwari kind of falls off your board. Even if they are, Nick Emenwari, not the most physical dude in the world. I have confidence they can coach him into more physical play because they did it with Jeremy Chin. Coming from Carolina, he wasn't looking all that physical, not looking all that aggressive. They were able to kind of bring that out of him. However, it was pointed out to me by another media member I was having this conversation with that if you go back and look at early Jeremy Chin and Jeremy Chin coming out of the draft, he was super physical, and that's a good point. So the Carolina Panthers basically took that away from him versus it possibly just not being there with Emenwari. So a little bit of food for thought there. Donovan Ezeiruaku, there's no other Micah Parsons, quote unquote, on this roster, right? Dante Fowler Jr. was that Micah Parsons for them last year. There's no other guy like that that you just kind of look and say, boom, that's our Micah Parsons for this defense. So Ezeiruaku could certainly be that guy. Outside of those two, I don't know that I look at this roster. I mean, Tyler Booker, Gray Zabel, they're going to compete. Potentially could be, but they're going to compete. Luther Burden's not going to be the number one, probably not going to be the number two target. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston, certainly the speed is there, but he's smaller. Can he stand up to the physicality of the game at the NFL level? Like, those are all questions. Josh Connerly is not going to be a slam dunk tackle either, even though probably would win the job, I think, right? But not a slam dunk. Kenneth Grant is going to compete with a lot of guys on the D-line. Travion Henderson, B-Rob, Austin Eckler are certainly going to be there to have their say on who gets snaps, right? So I look at them and a lot of upside, but is there a player on this roster that's just boom, great above the rest? No, I don't think there is. So the question is, who is the deal with after that? Who's calling on the other side of the phone saying we want to move up to number 29, and who's likely to come off the board? Well, Cleveland Browns are a team that I've talked about a lot about this team trading back for or with. And if it's clearly my preferred spot at 33, well, if you do that, Cleveland moves up to 29 for a quarterback. Then we have some mock scenarios, right? The Vikings say take Emenwari. The Ravens then take another safety, Malachi Starks out of Georgia. The Rams take Luther Burden III, so your receiver is gone. That puts you on the clock. And from your original list, you still have Booker and Zabel. You've got Ezeiruaku, Hairston, Connerly, Grant, and Henderson, all still available. Now, if the Ravens go Ezeiruaku instead of Starks, because they could use an edge rusher as well, then Starks is back on the board, Ezeiruaku is off. You still have a pretty good list. So if the prospect is moving down to 33, collecting more picks, our Locked On mock draft trade was number 104 in the early fourth round, so that's not a bad deal. You get that early fourth round pick added to your current stock. Personally, the only player on that list that I'm not answering the phone for to discuss a trade is Donovan Ezeiruaku. Like, when I say, who do I think, boom, is our home run guy? Donovan Ezeiruaku is that home run guy. Donovan Ezeiruaku, I feel like, fits like a glove with this scheme and with what this team needs to replace Dante Fowler Jr. But if the Commanders don't find him great, then a move could still come. As far as moving up, we'll talk about that one real quick here. I would be eternally surprised if the Washington Commanders moved up. Looking at the mock drafts, the guy that I look at that is the furthest down the board that would be worth moving up for, in my opinion, wide receiver Matthew Golden. He is going right around number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys, which means you're going to move up to number 11 with the San Francisco 49ers. That would require the Commanders to make up. After you give them 29 already, you have to make up 156 points according to the Rich Hill chart for draft value picks or draft pick value charts. That's the equivalent of the 6th pick in the second round. So if the Commanders, for point standpoint, were to give up 29, 61, and 128, their first 3 picks in this year's draft, they would still have to satisfy a mid-third round value in order to make up the rest of the cost. So you're going to lose all 3 of those picks. You're going to get a wide receiver, and then you're done till the 6th round. Just not going to happen. You know what I mean? So staying and picking is more likely than trading up, I think. Trading back, I'd say, is much more likely unless something incredible happens and somebody just slides stunningly down the board. AP kind of joked that if Abdul Carter is available at 29, we'll take him because that's not going to happen. AP also said, quote, with 5 picks, that's something like you'd like to do is add picks, but you always have to have somebody who wants to come up too. So who are the trade candidates that might want to move up and make a deal with the Washington Commanders? That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by GameStop. There is nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with GameTime, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting because you want your playoff tickets, your playoff experience to be as smooth as possible. GameTime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here is why I use GameTime. Last-minute deals, we mentioned it, save up to 60% off of last-minute tickets for your sports, comedy, concert, theater, etc. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Continuing now today's episode of Locked On Commanders, after we spoke to Adam Peters on Tuesday, talking about trading in the NFL draft, and it just got me thinking, man, it's got the wheels turning. I was driving home from the press conference. I'm like, man, we got to talk about this. So talked about the likelihood of moving up. Again, these players are all eye of the beholder. When I look at the mock drafts, I go down the list. I'm like, all these dudes are good players, good projections, right? But I'm like, who is worth moving up for? Who's that guy that could be like a game changer? I look at the Washington Commanders, I look at their wide receiver room, and I'm just like, Matthew Golden is probably the guy going the latest, right? Obviously, like Ashton Genty, those types of guys, but Matthew Golden's going at the end of that list. And the price to move up to like a number 11 to get ahead of the Cowboys to get him, just ridiculous. You're not going to do it. But AP did acknowledge that, again, quote, with 5 picks, that's something like you'd like to do is add picks, but you also have to have somebody who wants to come up too, end quote. And I think that when you're at 29, there's a high likelihood, especially in this draft class, that someone's going to want to come up. Why? Because they're going to want a quarterback. So there are 6 teams that project to be quarterback needy. The Tennessee Titans, the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, the New Orleans Saints, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, looking at the mocks again, the Tennessee Titans are projected to take Cam Ward out of Miami of Florida with the number 1 overall pick. That's their quarterback. The Raiders are projected by Chad Reuter of NFL.com to take Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado, with the number 6 overall pick. The New Orleans Saints are now projected to take Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss with the number 9 overall pick, again, according to Reuter. So that leaves you, that's your first round for Chad Reuter out of NFL.com. So that leaves you the next top quarterback off the board, Jalen Milroe out of Alabama, presumably to the Browns at number 33. That is where Reuter sends him in his most recent 7th-round draft pick, mock draft. But if you convince Cleveland that the Giants or the Steelers are going to try to move ahead of them to get a quarterback first, you might be able to get them to pay, again, a little bit higher than what the Rich Hill model says. So the Rich Hill model says for each of these 3 teams, here's what they have to give up just as close to equal points as possible. The Cleveland Browns at number 33 to get to number 29 for that quarterback would have to give up number 33 in the 2nd round, number 104 in the 4th round. That's an 11-point overpay, according to the Rich Hill model, which we are moving back into the 1st round. You're getting a quarterback. That's a more than reasonable overpay. So we're okay there. That's the trade that we made with Spencer German, the host of Locked On Browns and the Locked On podcast mock draft. New York Giants are 34. They would have to give up number 34 and number 99 to move up to number 29. That is a 9-point overpay. So slightly less overpay for the New York Giants. Hang on. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't have a second-round draft pick. So if they can't get a quarterback in the first, you're now looking at, for 29, they'd have to give you 83, which is in the third round, 123, which is in the fourth round, and a 2026 first. Then you're still only 3.5 points over. And if you're telling me you want my first round pick and you're not giving me anything back this year until the third round, you're overpaying by more than 3.5 points, my friend. Like, that's not going to happen. So the Steelers, I kind of feel like they're out of the running here. They might just be stuck on Aaron Rodgers' island, just waiting to see when Aaron Rodgers comes out of his cave and if he sees a shadow or not. But because you're overpaying, the Giants are in a sticky situation. Because if the Giants trade up for a quarterback, that's not going to sit well with Russell Wilson, the guy that they brought in his introductory press conference, talked about how he's just running the whole stinking franchise. That's not going to sit well with him, because not only are you trading back in the first round to get a quarterback, which means you're eventually replacing him, but you're also giving up draft capital that could then be used to help Russell win with your team that you're no longer going to use to help him win. Not going to sit well. But if they don't, then Russell Wilson basically better challenge for an NFC East division title, or else they're just going to clean house in New York, right? So a very sticky situation for the Giants. But also, you're asking Adam Peters to trade within the division again. And AP kind of addressed that and said, the best deal is the best deal. Not worried about trading in the division. He's already proven that. Trade with the Eagles twice last year. However, I do think it gets a little bit different when there's a quarterback involved. It's one thing to trade back, let one of your division rivals trade up to get a player that you're not going to take anyway. It's a whole other thing to let your division rival trade up with you, jump ahead of another team that wants a quarterback, and help them potentially land their next franchise quarterback. To me, that's a little bit different. I think there's a little bit of a different skew there. So if you're AP, you're at least going to make them overpay more, right? Or you're just straight up not going to do it. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get Cleveland on the phone, convince them to come up from that 104 overall in the fourth round to at least their late third round pick, number 94 overall, which would be an overpay of 19 points at that point, equivalent to a late fourth for the right to get a quarterback ahead of the others and get a fifth-year option on Milroe. Now, if I remember correctly, the Cleveland Browns also have an earlier third-round pick that would be about a 50-point overpay, which is about the equivalent of a mid-third or a mid-fourth round pick. I think it's a mid-third round pick. That's very rich. But again, if you're talking about going up and getting your potential franchise quarterback, right, like Jalen Milroe, if you're Cleveland, you're probably going to let him sit for a year. You're going to let him kind of understudy all that stuff, and you're going to hope that he can pan out. That athleticism also combines with a little bit of arm talent, right? That's kind of the best case scenario, is that first third round pick from Cleveland. But more likely than not, you convince them to give you that late third round pick. They keep their fourth round. First of all, that late third is actually from Buffalo, so in some ways, not even their own pick. So they might be a little bit more willing to come off of it. Now, you might notice that just talking about all this without even having another GM on the other side of the phone has taken us about as long as it takes for the clock to wear down on an NFL draft pick on night one. The good news here is all these talks are already starting to happen. AP said, quote, "We're making those calls this week. We'll have an idea of who wants to come up and if we want to do that," end quote. So these talks are already starting to happen. AP also told me, quote, "There is a group of 10, 5, 20 guys. If these guys are there, should we stay and pick or should we trade down?" End quote. To me, that list of likely players is not even 5 deep that you would consider staying at 29 and picking. So if this Browns trade idea works and the Browns come up, even if you can't convince them to come all the way up into the third round, even if you have to take that fourth round pick and the Browns are like, "Look, we don't believe anybody's actually trying to jump up. We don't believe you're going to trade with the Giants, but we just want to be 100% sure. We want to get that fifth round option. So let us come up right now to 29, and this is what we'll give you." That's still a better option to me. Again, to me, Donovan Ezeiruaku, you pick him at 29. If Ezeiruaku is not there, which I've got friends in Atlanta telling me he's not getting past the Falcons. I've got friends in Tampa telling me he's not getting past the Bucks. So we'll see. But if he's there at 29, to me, you're taking him. If he's not there, if the Cleveland Browns want to move up to get a quarterback, which I don't see why they wouldn't, you make the deal. Hopefully you get that third round pick. What would that look like if that trade is able to go down? What better way to end a pre-draft trade pick or pick trade conversation than with a pre-draft trade mock draft? Bonus mock draft coming right now. Let's go. And this episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. The latest technology is going to help elevate your playing experience with Wi-Fi, auto low latency mode, advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smooth, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that you need in order to stay competitive. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders with a bonus mock draft. So Adam Peters said a lot of things about trading up, about trading down, about sticking and picking, and we are sitting here doing our best to pick through them, read through the lines, read between the lines, read above them, read under them, and figure out what is most likely to happen. And to me, most likely, you're probably trading down. And to me, you're most likely trading down with the Cleveland Browns. If you can get a little bit of a bidding war, then I think we're going to convince Cleveland to take the Washington Commanders 29th overall pick. And in exchange, you're going to end up with the Cleveland Browns 33rd overall pick, the first pick in the second round, and you're going to get the 94th pick, which is a late third round pick. And going through a mock draft with those picks, the first pick, I'm taking a 33, running back TreVeyon Henderson. Listen, I am just in love with the idea of TreVeyon Henderson playing for this Washington Commanders team. I know there's a lot of people who say, you know what, draft TreVeyon Henderson and then trade Brian Robinson Jr. I don't know if that would be the plan. I don't know if that's exactly how this would go down. You know what I mean? But I think TreVeyon Henderson, pass blocking is already a great thing. His burst, his ability to hit home runs on the ground. He's got enough power to run between the tackles as well. Like TreVeyon Henderson at Ohio State has just become, he and Donovan Ezeiruaku, I think, are clearing away my two favorite players at or near the top of this board for the Washington Commanders. 61st overall pick. Come back on the clock. Cornerback Darian Porter staring us right in the face. 6'3", 4'3", 40 speed. I mean, you go after that, right? You go after all that. Iowa State only started for 1 year. That's a little bit of a risky play, but you're going to go after that potential. You're going to go after that upside, and you're going to develop the crap out of him starting in training camp, rookie mini camp. Coming back in the third round, 94th overall pick. I'm looking at D lineman Jordan Phillips out of Maryland. Going to help us get better against the run, hopefully, as he develops himself. Fourth round pick, 128th overall pick, guard Miles Frazier. We're going to bring him in. We're going to let him compete. I don't think right off the bat he's going to be better than Nick Allegretti. So I think Nick Allegretti still ends up your starter. But Miles Frazier, I think, can come in and definitely end up competing for one of those key backup jobs. And then you never know. You never know what happens from there. Sixth round pick, pick 205, linebacker Shamar James out of Florida, listed as an off-ball linebacker, but I think the Commanders shift him into that outside linebacker role. I'm not going to sit here and tell you 6th round pick, he's going to be your starting outside linebacker. That's going to have to get figured out still, but I think he's got more potential there, especially in this defense, than he does as an off-ball linebacker. And then with our 7th round pick, pick 245 overall, safety Hunter Wohler out of Wisconsin, hard-nosed safety, hard-hitting, strong safety, Hunter Wohler out of Wisconsin. Again, him back there with a guy like Tyler Owens. If Tyler can be healthy and stay healthy, Will Harris, Quan Martin, that's a very decent, very good safety core. And if Hunter Wohler can develop over the next year or two, he'll contribute on special teams, as will Shamar James, a linebacker out of Florida. So that's kind of the mock draft class that I come up with for this bonus mock draft. So that's a glimpse of what trade scenarios could look like for the Washington Commanders come Thursday night and what the outcome could be. We only moved from 5 to 6 picks, right? We only added 1 pick, but I think adding that 1 pick really kind of just brings the whole thing home. You don't end up, you have no picks. You ultimately have no picks in the first round or the 5th round. But again, that first pick in the 2nd round, you're getting a dude that you could have taken in the 1st round anyway. Yeah, you don't get the 5th-year option. But again, the way that Adam Peters is managing these contracts, you're not really super worried about it anyway. You end up without a pick in the 5th, but you have 2 picks in the 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, a 6th, a 7th. That's a really good spread of draft picks for a team that is still very much building from the inside out. So again, a glimpse of what trade scenarios could play out this weekend as the NFL draft gets kicked off Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. A little bit of a little bit of a shameless plug, if you want to call it that. WSA9 having a pre-draft show starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time on WSA9, your local CBS affiliate. I will be a part of that pre-draft show. I will be in Ashburn, so I'll be joining that pre-draft show. So if you want to see that, again, go to WSA9. You can watch it online. You can do all kinds of good stuff and catch that as well. And of course, insiders, you already know, I will be texting with you all night as well. So if you go to bed, turn your alerts off, because I might have to wake you up, but hopefully I don't wake you up. And of course, we had at least one insider, and we've had 3 insiders so far request an insider Zoom before the NFL draft. So we'll look to kick that off as well with everything going on. So if you want to get involved in that, become an insider. Join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. You're going to get live text during press conferences, just like we did on Tuesday with Adam Peters and Lance Newmark. Live text during the NFL draft. You're going to get invites to our Zoom conferences where we sit down and shoot the breeze about the Washington Commanders and so much more. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL mock draft, available right now on the Locked On NFL draft page on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day. Every dayers, thank you for coming through every single day. And until we speak again, if you're on about, please be safe, be kind, so you can make it to the NFL draft. And I can see you here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.